Section 29 of the Life of Samuel Johnson, Volume 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, visit LibriVox.org. Read by Nick Marsh in Tenino, Washington. The Life of Samuel Johnson, Volume 1, by James Boswell. Section 29. On Wednesday, July 20, Dr. Johnson, Mr. Dempster, and my uncle, Dr. Boswell, who happened to be now in London, supped with me at these chambers. Johnson. Pity is not natural to man. Children are always cruel. Savages are always cruel. Pity is acquired and improved by the cultivation of reason. We may have uneasy sensations from seeing a creature in distress, without pity, for we have not pity unless we wish to relieve him. When I am on my way to dine with a friend, and finding it late, have bid the coachman make haste. If I happen to attend when he whips his horses, I may feel unpleasantly that the animals are put to pain, but I do not wish him to desist. No, sir, I wish him to drive on. Mr. Alexander Donaldson, bookseller of Edinburgh, had for some time opened a shop in London, and sold his cheap editions of the most popular English books, in defiance of the supposed common law right of literary property. Johnson, though he concurred in the opinion which was afterwards sanctioned by the judgment of the House of Lords, that there was no such right, was at this time very angry that the booksellers of London, for whom he uniformly professed much regard, should suffer from an invasion of what they had ever considered to be secure. And he was loud and violent against Mr. Donaldson. He is a fellow who takes advantage of the law to injure his brethren, for notwithstanding that the statute secures only 14 years of exclusive right, it has always been understood by the trade that he who buys the copyright of a book from the author obtains perpetual property, and upon that belief numberless bargains are made to transfer that property after the expiration of the statutory term. Now Donaldson, I say, takes advantage here of people who have really an equitable title from usage, and if we consider how few of the books of which they buy the property succeed so well as to bring profit, we should be of the opinion that the term of 14 years is too short. It should be 60 years. Dempster. Donaldson, sir, is anxious for the encouragement of literature. He reduces the price of books so that the poor students may buy them. Johnson, laughing. Well, sir, allowing that to be his motive, he is no better than Robin Hood, who robbed the rich in order to give to the poor. It is remarkable that when the great question concerning literary property came to be ultimately tried before the supreme tribunal of the country, in consequence of the very spirited exertions of Mr. Donaldson, Dr. Johnson was zealous against a perpetuity, but he thought that the term of the exclusive right of authors should be considerably enlarged. He was then for granting 100 years. The conversation now turned upon Mr. David Hume's style. Johnson. Why, sir, his style is not English. The structure of his sentence is French. Now the French structure and the English structure may in the nature of things be equally good, but if you allow that the English language is established, he is wrong. My name might originally have been Nicholson, as well as Johnson, but were you to call me Nicholson now, you would call me very absurdly. Rousseau's treatise on the inequality of mankind was at this time a fashionable topic. It gave rise to the observation of Mr. Dempster, that the advantages of fortune and rank were nothing to a wise man, who ought to value only merit. Johnson. If man were a savage living in the woods by himself, this might be true, but in civilized society we all depend upon each other, and our happiness is very much owing to the good opinion of mankind. Now, sir, in civilized society, external advantages make us more respected. A man with a good coat upon his back meets with a better reception than he who has a bad one. Sir, you may analyse this and say, what is there in it? But that will avail you nothing, for it is a part of a general system. Pound St. Paul's Church into atoms, and consider any single atom. It is, to be sure, good for nothing. But put all these atoms together, and you have St. Paul's Church. So it is with human felicity, which is made up of many ingredients, each of which may be shown to be very insignificant in civilized society. Personal merit will not serve you so much as money will, sir. You may make the experiment. Go into the street and give one man a lecture on morality, and another a shilling, and see which will respect you most. If you wish only to support nature, Sir William Petty fixes your allowance at £3 a year, but as times are much altered, let us call it £6. This sum will fill your belly, shelter you from the weather, and even get you a strong lasting coat, supposing it be made of good bull's hide. Now, sir, all beyond this is artificial, and is desired in order to obtain a greater degree of respect from our fellow creatures. And, sir, if £600 a year procure a man more consequence, and of course more happiness, then £6 a year, the same proportion will hold to as 6,000, and so on, as far as opulence can be carried. Perhaps he who has a large fortune may not be so happy as he who has a small one, but that must proceed from other causes than from having the large fortune. For ceteris paribus, he who is rich in civilized society must be happier than he who is poor, as riches, if properly used, and it is a man's own fault if they are not, must be productive of the highest advantages. Money, to be sure, of itself is of no use, for its only use is to part with it. Rousseau and all those who deal in paradoxes are led away by a childish desire of novelty. When I was a boy, I used always to choose the wrong side of a debate, because most ingenious things, that is to say, most new things, could be said upon it. So there is nothing for which you may not muster up more plausible arguments than those which are urged against wealth and other external advantages. Why now, there is stealing. Why should it be thought a crime, when we consider by what unjust methods property has often been acquired, and that what was unjustly got, it must be unjust to keep? Where is the harm in one man's taking the property of another from him? Besides, sir, when we consider the bad use that many people make of their property, and how much better use the thief may make of it, it may be defended as a very allowable practice. Yet, sir, the experience of mankind has discovered stealing to be so very bad a thing that they make no scruple to hang a man for it. When I was running about this town, a very poor fellow, I was a great arguer for the advantages of poverty, but I was at the same time very sorry to be poor. Sir, all the arguments which are brought to represent poverty as no evil show it to be evidently a great evil. You never find people labouring to convince you that they may live very happily upon a plentiful fortune. So you hear people talking how miserable a king must be, and yet they all wish to be in his place. It was suggested that kings must be unhappy, because they are deprived of the greatness of all satisfactions, easy and unreserved society. Johnson. That is an ill-founded notion. Being a king does not exclude a man from such society. Great kings have always been social. The kings of Prussia, the only great king at present, is very social. Charles II, and the last king of England, who was a man of parts, was social, and our Henrys and Edwards were all social. Mr. Dempster, having endeavoured to maintain that intrinsic